So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar today, the Roots Up panel discussion, which we're bringing to you. It's a collaboration this morning between Aura and Kerr. And it's going to last for an hour. We're going to have questions, but we're going to begin with an introduction to your panelists this morning. And I'm going to hand over to Daniel to do that introduction.
Afternoon, everyone. So my name is Daniel Singham, and I'm the Commercial Director at Yonder Data Solutions and on the steering committee for Colour of Research, who advocate for the inclusion of ethnic professionals in the industry. A big welcome to the panel and all of you logging in right now, and to the millions and millions around the globe that are joining to be part of this. You had many choices today at 12 p.m. You could have had lunch, you could be working, you could have maybe snuck to an early afternoon nap, but you didn't. You chose to be here with us today. So we're very delighted with that choice you made, and we appreciate the support. I've personally had offers to host the Oscars, the Emmys, the Brit Awards, many other things like that. But why would I want to do any of that when this is where all the magic, the advice and inspiration happens? So Colour of Research and the Auras got together at the end of last year to organise this webinar with an objective to look at the roots up, learning from personal stories and alternative career paths, which hopefully ultimately results in inspiration and pragmatic advice to our audience. And we've been looking forward to this for some time. This webinar is being recorded. We're going to go through a series of questions with our panelists, and then there is a Q&A box for any questions for you all to pop in as we go. Any questions not answered due to the purposes of time, we are doing a summary of this webinar, so they all will be answered in due course. So let's start with our panelists. Tell us who you are. So we'll start with you, Francesca.
Hi, my name is Francesca Miller. I work for Hiscox, where I manage the research and the insight for our European markets, France, Germany, the Netherlands and Spain. And I make sure that, we understand customers across those markets. And yeah, that's where I am today.
Over to you, Babita.
Hi, Daniel. Lovely intro. Thank you for that. So I'm Babita. I work at Zappi. I've been at Zappi for 8 years. Prior to that, I was at GfK, which is Zeeshan's at. So we know each other. It's nice to see him again. What I do at Zappi is recently, this start of this year, I've taken on the role as international MD for business. And if you don't know about Zappi, we are a software platform for research industry, and then there's a number of other sort of roles that I have within the market research industry as well. So thank you for inviting me.
All right, Philip.
Thank you, Daniel. So hi everyone, I'm Phil Belsey. I've got 20 years experience in the market research world, 10 years of that on the agency side, 10 years of that roughly on the client side as well. Current role here at the FA is Research and Insights Lead. So what that means is I lead the team in all of the organisational research and insight work that we do here. Don't get involved in sort of player analytics, but pretty much everything else me and my team look after.
Wendy?
I am Wendy, and I'm a custom research with the Spring Society. I'm also a member of Earle and Women in Research, and I'm a mentor for FMRS. I actually started my professional career as a home economics teacher, to pretty quickly realize that I didn't want to end my career as a teacher. So back to school it was at night while working admin roles during the day. And when I got my master's in business admin, I landed a job with Procter & Gamble in advertising and then procurement. Until I come across this job advert asking for a multilingual markets and product researcher with an engineering background. So the job entails extensive European and American travel. I jumped on the opportunity, although I could only qualify for 1 out of the 3, being multilingual. Yet I landed a job. For the first years, I had like a running tap on any course that the FMRS could throw at me. I progressed from research analyst to research manager to European research manager, when it all came tumbling down, and there I was on the streets without a job. But along the way, I had picked up some really useful research skill, and hence the years I could, as a freelance, either for working for agencies or under my own name for small companies. It was a time of self-contemplation and also taking stock. And one of the things I found out was that I felt much more comfortable and happier working under the umbrella of a company in the workplace rather than flying solo. And hence, when my current job came along 5 years ago, I didn't hesitate. That's me.
Thank you very much, Wendy. And finally, over to you, Zeeshan.
Hi everyone, I'm Zeeshan Siddique. I currently work for GfK. We've recently merged with NIQ. Using a football analogy, we were talking about football a bit earlier, I'm a one club man. I've been there for 20 plus years, had various roles. Currently, I look after a procurement team in EMEA. We're responsible for the data category within GfK, but I've held many senior roles within operations, project management, panel management, and costing as well within GfK.
Nice, thanks, Zeeshan. Zeeshan, are you also one club man when it comes to football?
Definitely, same as Philip as well.
Oh, we won't ask who then.
Mm.
Okay, so thanks for all the intros, guys. We're going to get straight into it. Just Wendy, when you next speak, if you could just speak a little louder, please. I think we
Sure, yeah.
some of
Okay.
the had mentioned it may have been a little bit harder to hear you. That's fine. So Babita, I've got a question for you and Zeeshan, and I'll start with Babita first. You know, getting into research is interesting. I remember being about 10 years old and I wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah.
I think that's quite a common answer. I would love to have said I had a dream of working in research, but that really wasn't the case. It just happened. Do you have a more exciting answer with the question, how did you get into research?
I don't know. This I did a recent interview with some of our marketing team, and the videos on LinkedIn I was looking at last night, and my daughter was just cringing at it. And he said, "What did I want to do when I was young?" And it was like, "I wanted to be a dancer." So that would be my answer, but obviously that didn't happen. Research was never on my radar. As you probably know, people from other ethnic backgrounds, research really isn't on our radar as a profession. You know, our parents want us to be doctors and dentists, and I think my dad still thinks I'm a VAT inspector. But honestly, he did introduce me at a family wedding, say, "This is my daughter. Oh, is she the VAT inspector?" And he went, "Yes, she is." So anyway, I let him believe that. But I came into research. I actually chose ultimately to enter the industry. I know that's very rare because most people fall into it. I did a degree in maths and stats, and then I went and worked as a statistician for the ONS. And I found that quite academic and not commercial enough, and I couldn't really see the impact of what I was doing having on decisions. So then I did my research and I came across the research industry, and I've always wanted to be in the marketing sphere as well. So I thought, great, here's an industry that uses my skills in data, very commercial, and is linked to marketing. So I came across an organization then called NOP, which I know Tom, we just discovered, used to work at many, many years ago. Met Phyllis McFarlane, which many of you know, and that's how I entered the research industry. Yeah, and I've been in it ever since, various different roles, and it's been really good. Variety of different things that I've been able to do within the industry. So that's me.
Perfect.
That's how I entered research.
And Zeeshan, the same question for you. How did you get into research?
Very different answer. My mum actually thinks I work for GSK, so yeah, she thinks I'm into pharmaceuticals, so fair enough. We still living the life. So yeah, for me, it was really weird. I was at university, I needed a part-time job. I actually started as a telephone interviewer in one of our call centers, which Babita was one of our research execs, I remember from the early times, which was quite inspirational. Because the call center is a lot more diverse, I would say. And so making that transition from a call center to head office, I did various roles within the call center. I think they just thought, get this guy off the phones. So they were making me supervisor. Then I think I did training and recruitment. eventually went on to call center managers in 2 of the call centers. And I was given an opportunity by Claire Blythe, who ended up being my line manager for about 15 years. And she gave me an opportunity to come up to head office, as I think it was initially like a staff loan we used to do, where you can come up and help. And then I stayed there ever since, basically within operations. It was a big culture shock. So like I said, when I got to head office, it was completely different. I mean, we were worried in the call centers about people turning up on time or even turning up. We had boardrooms and biscuits, and it was a different lifestyle. So it was a bit of a culture shock. It took a while for us to adjust. There was quite a few of us that were given an opportunity. But yeah, that was the beginning. And then I never left. I was given opportunities all along the way within operations, within project management. And, the biggest testament I can give to the company is that I stayed that long and I never felt unwanted or not progressing. I constantly was evolving and progressing.
That's good to hear. I fell into research as well, by chance. And I mentioned to my parents, I'm working in research, and they said, "Oh, are you a scientist?" And I said, "Yeah, let's just go with that." Question 2, over to you, Tom.
I stumbled into research as well. I don't think my father, who was a welder, ever understood what I did. So I just used to say, I work in advertising, Dad, and left it at that. So I think most of us kind of stumble into the world of research, don't we? I've got a question for Francesca and for Phil. Question is, do you think that there is such a thing as a linear career path in research? Francesca.
Okay. When I started my career in research, I actually thought there was, because I had no idea, and what I saw was that there were people who had evolved from, the junior exec, and then depending on whether you're staying in the same company or moving from one company to another, you go up some form of corporate ladder. Very early, I thought that it was the kind of classic route, but then over the years, and especially probably the last 10 years, as I got older, I realized that actually, no, whether you're working on the agency side or the client side, like I do, you don't necessarily start as an exec and then evolve to a manager and then evolve to a head of or a director. There's so many methodologies that customers and consumers are so varied and so different, and there's so many sectors that you can choose to go for a path where you decide to explore different types of audiences or different types of methodologies. I've worked with people who started as qualies and then retrained and evolved as statistical psychologists, or went into behavioral science, or there are many paths and many possibilities depending on what rocks your boat and what you want to learn, how you want to evolve, and what's important to you. Is it the title, or is it whatever makes you feel fulfilled? That's my perception.
Okay. And Phil?
Yeah, so I concur a lot with what Francesca said. I think it is possible to have a linear career still. I know people at Ipsos, for example, who started as a grad and are working now as senior directors and have done that progression over time. But I do think it's increasingly rare to come across that kind of linear path for the reasons that Francesca was just talking about. I think in reality, progression requires variety. Particularly on the client side, you kind of have to have a number of different strings to your bow, particularly if you want to get to senior roles on the client side. So yeah, having a journey that spans a number of different areas, specialisms, skills, etc., can only help you in that respect. I think my journey in particular, started on the agency side, did a really comprehensive training in qual and quant, specialized in quant for a while, but then had that itch, like, well, what's life like on the other side of the table? Had that curiosity. I've worked in B2C, I've worked in B2B, I've worked selling products for Samsung, I've sold services for a software company and for Sky. I've worked in huge companies like Samsung. I've worked in a startup with 26 people. And all of those experiences and skills and things I've picked up along the way have given me, those strings to my bow that I really required for my current role. My current role is incredibly varied, and there's absolutely no way on earth that I would have landed it if I didn't have that variety of experience. Because here at the FA, we talk in B2B, we talk in B2C, we talk youth research, we talk to high net worth individuals. Like the breadth is unbelievable. So having, small experiences of that across my career to date has really helped me in that respect.
And how did you find that transition, Phil, from agency side to client side? What were the similarities and what were the differences?
I think I found the transition quite easy, relatively. I think my personality and the way I like to work suits better on the client side. Different challenges, though. You have a lot more politics and kind of structural things to deal with on the client side. I think agency side, you do live in a bubble to a certain extent, with different pressures and different kind of hierarchies involved. But no, for me, that transition was quite smooth and allowed me to leverage some of the skills that I developed on the agency side and apply them on the client side.
And Francesca, you didn't come from the agency side, so how did you find it dealing with agency side people now?
I actually started my career on agency side, and
big part.
yes, I should have mentioned it earlier. And I found I had a not a traumatic, but not a great experience on the agency side, which made me realize that actually client side was better for me. I had hopped on and off from either side, and probably a personality clash. But I like working on the client side because I feel that I can evolve, have more of an impact on any project, or build more longer lasting relationships with stakeholders. Whereas on the agency side, like Phil said, you live a bit in a little bubble and you're in that world, and there are different dynamics. And also the agency side suits different types of personalities, but not necessarily mine.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Daniel, over to you.
Great, thank you, everyone. Okay, so the next question, I'll start with Wendy. Where was the turning point in your career? And would you say you had to make some hard decisions or risks to get to where you are today?
Well, I think that you have to be prepared to make compromises and be clear on what you need versus what you want. So, for example, my decision to return to the company workplace in a research role and leave freelancing behind, for example, entailed saying goodbye to quite good earning potential. But on the other hand, it allowed me to break the cycle of financial feast and famine, which was much more important to me. So I'd say, know yourself and be true to yourself in making professional decisions.
Perfect. Thanks, Wendy. And the same question for you, Phil.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. I think everyone's journeys are very different. For me, there's an obvious turning point in terms of going agency side to client side after about 7 years of my career. But actually, when I was thinking about this, there's one really clear turning point for me in my career, and that was at Samsung. So on the client side, after 2 years in B2C research, I got made at risk. My role was put at risk, but I was luckily recommended by the CMO at the time to take on a completely new role in the B2B space. So moving from B2C research, never done any B2B research in my life, go and join this team as a relatively young, inexperienced researcher to basically build a B2B insight function at the European headquarters level. Yeah, so that taught me a number of things. I think I was very naive in my career up until that point. Like, you had this linear path, you just progressed every 2 years, that kind of thing. I hadn't really contemplated the idea that I could lose my job. So kind of losing the B2C side of things, building up the B2B thing meant I had to be really proactive. I had to mature very quickly and have that kind of realization that, you know what, your career is not always in your own control, but it gave me an opportunity to build my confidence, build my understanding of how to perform in quite high performance environment, and yeah, deal with the corporate world, and deal with a whole new level of senior stakeholders at Samsung. So yeah, whilst it was probably at the time the scariest thing of my life in career wise, it actually was the best thing, and has helped me to kick on from there.
Great. And how long have you been at the FA for?
The FA about 9 months now.
Cool. So I'm a football fan. I'm sure we have many football fans on here, and I always see it as you working in your role at the FA. Obviously, you get to use your skill set, but if football is like a passion of yours as well, it's almost like you've hit the jackpot there, really, haven't you? Because you're not just research, which is what you do, but you're really focusing on something you are personally passionate about. That must help.
Yeah, massively. Like I had a tough few years in terms of redundancies and things like that. So starting in 2016, a second redundancy, this time kind of into fruition, from Samsung. Then I had short spells at a startup at Sky, all ending in redundancy through no fault of my own. So that was tough, and you have to show resilience and like really gain control of your career and what you want to do. But in many ways, it's helped me, and I'm not a believer in fate necessarily, but like I said, having those different strings to my bow and those different experiences under my belt, there was no way I would have got this role at the FA, which requires such a diverse skill set. So, but it's lovely to combine your passion with your skills, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. I'm an Aston Villa fan, and I applied for a role at Aston Villa. I applied to actually be their manager. They obviously rejected me, but it was worth a shot. It's worth a shot. The next question, moving on to number 4, I'll hand it over to you, John.
Okay. And this question I'm going to put to Wendy and to Babita. It's do you really have to end up in the C-suite to have a fulfilling or successful research career?
Do you want me to go first?
Babita, yes, please.
It really depends on what you want, right? For some people, that is the goal. For others, it's not. We know how difficult it is to get to that level, particularly if you're of a certain profile, and there's only so many positions at that level. So it really depends on your personal ambitions. What I will say is that one thing that I've been championing, and is important to me, because I feel there needs to be more women of colour, more women of different social backgrounds at that level, because it encourages other women and other people of similar profiles who want to get to that level to show them that it's possible. So it really depends on that. But then I know of quite a lot of people that are mentoring that's just not what they want, and they're fulfilled by being a senior director on a really cool account, growing that globally, and that's also fine as well. The one thing I would say is how people see you and how the industry see you and the opportunities you get fundamentally changes with your title. And I know a lot of people say your title is not important, when you're talking to your managers and you're talking about your progression and you're doing the role and you're fighting for the title, they say it's not, but it is important. I mean, I've seen the difference myself. So it's not important ultimately, but it really depends on what your career goals are.
It's all about your own personal goals.
Absolutely.
And the reasons for doing it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are the benefits to you therefore having reached and being this role model, the benefits of actually becoming, because a senior person?
For me?
Yeah.
Or
You said that it actually brings, I'll use the word power. There's recognition and there's power.
What's the what's the
I'm thinking in terms of you have this objective to get to
Yeah.
this senior level, and now that you're there,
Mhm.
do you find that you're able to use that position
Yes. Yeah.
more easily because of the title that you've
Yes.
now assumed?
For sure. Well, for example, I'm on this webinar is one. I'm going to be presenting at the conference next week. It enables me to make decisions that help others within the organization. It just gives you a voice at a business decision making level. And perhaps people don't do it on purpose, but it's just not there. It's just not in their background. It's just not in their thinking. And I'm a massive believer in growing my network and helping people. So being in this kind of position helps me do that, and also helps me introduce new initiatives within my organization as well. So yeah, I think it totally does. It does make things a lot easier. And then you have budgets as well to do this kind of thing. Money matters at the end of the day. So yeah, it does.
Ah, perfect. Thank you, Babita. And Wendy, can I put the same question to you?
Sure, but I'm afraid I'm going a little bit against the grain here, because I'm a firm believer in, if you love your job, you don't work a day in your life. And my trick is been to be honest and true to myself in setting professional priorities. And I'm happiest doing what I'm good at. And my current role as customer research analyst fits me to a T on a professional and a personal level. And I wouldn't change it for any fancy title or more money in the world. And I think it actually also takes courage to go against the usual career expectations of always having to move up vertically.
Okay, so basically, Wendy, what you're saying is it's fine to utilize your skills and your talents for a role that you enjoy, with the end product of a happy life. So you've set your objectives as that, yeah?
Yes, and it's very personal, and I do appreciate people who think otherwise. And then if they want to go for it, by all means do so.
Okay, so it's about ambition, as you say, Babita, and having the skills and talents to get there. But equally, people should be very conscious in terms of how they can best utilize their skills, their talents, their capabilities.
And I think people potentially will get to that level and think, actually, this isn't what it's all cut out to be. I'm quite happy doing what I was doing before. And as I said, it's not for everybody. You've got to have a reason, because it takes a lot, but it's ultimately what makes you happy and fulfilled at the end of the day.
Yeah, and there will be sacrifices, I dare say. At least of all, time becomes the new currency.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you both. Daniel, over to you.
Thanks, Tom. So I've got a question for Francesca for starters. It's an interesting question because everybody will define it differently. And the question is, what does success look like? It's part one of the question. And part two of the question is, what would you advise to anyone who is looking to progress to a seniority level? So over to you, Francesca.
Okay. For me, my perception of success changed over the years. I started out my career by really wanting to be part of an executive boardroom, like always having a seat as part of the executive management in any kind of organization, ideally international, because my role model was Oprah Winfrey, being a black lady, having grown up in the Northwestern Hemisphere. That was the role model I had, and she was this, she's this larger than life kind of woman who's been really, really successful and who has had brands that were headed by a dominant race, pay to be visible in her media, in her magazine, and her TV programs. And I thought, oh, that's what I want. And as I started my career, and even within research, where I thought, okay, if I can get up there, that would be great. That's what my perception of success was. Fast forward about 10 to 8 years ago, things changed in my life, and also that there was a bit of a realization where I realized that, okay, maybe things don't necessarily go the way you want them to, because life happens, and also there are sacrifices. Someone mentioned sacrifices that you have to make, and particularly health, which for me was a bit of an issue about 10 to 8 years ago. Then I thought, okay, so what do I really want, and what is successful? And I looked at my LinkedIn profile, and I thought, okay, if you look at it on the face of it, I've basically been in I've occupied the same level, the same role for the last 15 years. There's no head of, there's no director, which for me would have been a sign of success. However, I look at what I've learned and the experience I've had I've been in research for over 20 years. And I look at the way I work nowadays. I've got loads and loads of, I'm always really busy. I've got lots of markets to manage, but I find myself not stressing or working the crazy hours I used to, because I'm more confident and I know more. So I know some of the things I've learned so much over the years that some of them are like muscle memory. And I'm also in a role where, particularly working with such conservative European markets, I feel like I know so much broadly, like laterally, that yeah, okay, it's not I'm not in the pyramid, I'm somewhere maybe in the middle, but that is also a sign of success. I've got this knowledge that no one can take away from me. No one can actually bring me down the ladder from that, because it's in my head and no one's going to pick that out of my head. So that's my perception. And if someone wants to get to seniority, progress to seniority, well, you've got to know what you want. And also be patient, learn the lessons and see where that takes you. But that's my perception, different ways.
Perfect. Thanks, Francesca. And Zeeshan, same to you, please. So what does success look like, and what advice would you give to anyone who is looking to progress to seniority level?
Yeah, so I think in terms of success is all relative to your company, to the roles that are available within your organization. Personally, I identified from early on that my strengths were in managing people. So that's where I've always looked to progress in terms of managing small and large teams. But, you could say 1,000 call center staff, is that the same as having 2 staff but looking after millions? It's kind of relative. And as you go through your career, you probably look at other areas where you probably are maybe a little bit weak. So you're kind of honest to yourself. So for instance, I've gone into procurement, which is completely left field for what I've done before, maybe because I didn't feel comfortable as a negotiator, didn't feel comfortable dealing with suppliers where I would basically be a bit more assertive. So this was something I addressed. I thought 2 years ago, let's make a change there. So I think in terms of success individually, you have to think about what your goals are, what your targets are. I would always advise people to make sure you're proactively in charge of your development. You don't leave it to anybody else. You make sure that if you have targets set with your line manager to get to a certain position, that you're reviewing it, you're constantly on their case. They know that you are wanting to progress. Similarly with opportunities, don't look any opportunity down. Everything can lead to something. So I started to do mentorship. When I joined GfK, I was mentored by someone very senior within the organization. That helped me so much, just to network, just to get to know people, just put your face out there. I think one of the key things for me was we talk about sort of profiling, and maybe operations people aren't seen in the same light as researchers. And sometimes we have to almost try and get an equivalent or align ourselves to that level. And so professionalizing the operations department was really important for us within GfK. And so a lot of our time was spent trying to, because our backgrounds weren't necessarily people with degrees. There'll be people who left school who maybe not had the best educational background, but they could still aspire. And that's what we wanted to instill, that you can have a career path through operations, which is just as fulfilling as maybe a research role. It's just a different path, and you just need to sort of follow the line of fire, if you say, and work towards that. So it was trying to provide that. And I think now we've definitely succeeded, because we have many more people coming from different areas and different educational backgrounds, because sometimes people just didn't have an opportunity.
Perfect. Thanks, Zeeshan. I mean, for me, when I was about 18, and if someone had asked me what the success looked like, I probably would have said whatever my bank account looks like, because that's what I used to see it as. But obviously, as you get more experience in life, you realize there's a hell of a lot more factors that come into play. I mean, for me now, personally, it's just happiness. If you're happy, you're on the right lines to success. But thank you, Francesca and Zeeshan. Tom, over to you for the next one.
I see 2 great responses to that question. Great levels of self-awareness, having the confidence to define success, and then understanding that ultimately it's personal happiness that's most important in the frame. Right, next question. Did you expect your path to go this way? Did your career path take an unexpected turn? And if so, what did you learn from that? And can I put this question to Francesca?
Yeah, as I said earlier, you know, the first 10 years I had thought, well, first of all, I fell into research initially. I had wanted to become a writer. I wanted to tell stories about people, about how they behaved, and from different parts of the world. Fast forward, you know, you finish studying, and then you realize there's a real world, and you're looking for work. And actually, I do think that this is what I'm doing somehow. But it's in the corporate world. It's not as romantic as being a writer that's published, but I do tell stories about consumers, or in the current case, SMEs, and I thought I would work in different sectors. I also thought I would be at a different level, and I thought that my career path would be drawn in a certain way. But no, do you know what? I think my career, I think my journey has organically grown, and I'm actually let it organically grow, because I'm realizing that there are opportunities that are coming along the way. You meet people, you interact with different people along the way that either open doors or close some, and you realize that, well, maybe that wasn't the way to go. And a few years ago, I was working for Sky, and I thought that I would be there for a long time. And then I got made redundant, and then I worked in the cabinet office for a while. And my parents, okay, this is African parents at their best. They said, "You little chocolate, you're going to work in the cabinet office for the prime minister?" I thought, yeah, well, you know, these, and they thought, okay, maybe it's an accident. And you know, your career takes you in different places. And now I'm working for insurance, and I remember when I applied, I thought, oh, maybe a few years ago I would have said no, but then I thought there might be something interesting about the psychology of people's behavior, you know, when they think about risk, you know. So no, I didn't think I'd be here, and I'm happy to be taken along the way, so long as I perform well and I do well. Yeah.
We're being made redundant.
Sounds a bit bohemian.
Well, no, you're talking about identifying opportunities and having your eyes wide open, and yeah, along the way, with you and Phil have talked about redundancies, and that happens to everybody in life. That's just a fact of life. And did you find that the redundancy, get these words out properly, did the redundancy build your resilience?
Oh, absolutely. And also, especially because it's so unexpected. And I don't know if you feel, but I almost took it personally. I was like, why? Like, no one wants me. But then you realize that actually a door closes and maybe another opportunity somewhere else. And I took some time out, time for myself. And then I thought, okay, I'll start again. It happened to me when I was older, so I don't know whether I was more resilient then than if I had been in my 20s. I think that if it had happened in my 20s, I would have been, what are my parents going to think? They'll think I'm a failure or whatsoever. But no, it made me more resilient and I think this is why I'm more like, do you know what? Whatever opportunity comes along the way, I'll take it.
Yeah, great stuff. Now, some people on the call might actually think that insurance is dull. What would your response to that?
It does come across as dull, but actually it's quite interesting to understand how people value either their business or how they value what they own. So for some high net worth individuals, they value some of their objects, and they put a pound sign on that. If you have a small business, I mean, if you're a small a freelance IT consultant, well, do you know what, your network and your reputation and your IT technology is really important to you, and so you need something to back that up, and insurance is there. But some people, when they start out, they're like, do you know what, is that important? But then you realize how emotionally connected they are to their little business, to their lives. And if they have a partner that can just have their back while they focus on what matters, well, that's how we aspire to market ourselves. It doesn't come across always in advertising, but the French are quite good at showing that they're partners, but in some markets it's a bit dry.
I think the important thing for me is that the image of insurance is quite dry, but people shouldn't limit they shouldn't limit their career on perception, and they should think in terms of the opportunities that could be, because some of the markets that sound quite dull are in fact very exciting, and insurance is one of those markets.
The customers are quite a fascinating crowd to try to understand.
Absolutely. Zeeshan, can we put the same question to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting to be a footballer,
Thank
but
you,
I think it
Francesca.
might be a bit late now. But yeah, I think it does depend on your life circumstances as well. When you're younger, you don't have responsibilities. I think you're a bit more experimental, or you can change course or look to other areas where you might want to dabble. But I think once you have kids, mortgage, all of those kind of thing, and I'm kind of risk averse person, but I feel like that loyalty is then rewarded for both myself and the company, in that you've got someone there for the long term, who's not going to up and leave at any opportunity that comes somewhere else. Sometimes I feel, oh, maybe I should have gone to see how another organization functions, what different things have happened, but we've merged so many times that I feel like I've been part of about 6 different organizations anyway. So yeah, I don't feel like I've missed out on anything, and I find the roles that I've had to be really enjoyable and challenging. I think that was the key, that if something was boring or it wasn't kind of progressing anywhere, then I feel like I could have made a change or gone somewhere else. But I've always felt very comfortable in the environment with the people. The people make it for me. I enjoy working with the people. Obviously, since lockdown, it's got a lot harder, and maybe newer faces as well, but I still enjoy the way the company functions and the kind of value I can bring. If I felt I didn't bring it, or it was better to try something else, I would. But I just always felt in this company, I've always been given an opportunity to go whichever route I felt comfortable with.
Brilliant. Great response. Thank you both. Daniel, over to you for the next question.
Right. Thanks, Tom. I was going to ask Francesca, when she was talking about insurance, if she could advise the audience on any insurance scams, but then I thought, better not. It's not the webinar for that. And Zeeshan, it's never too late to be a footballer. I still dream about it.
Well, I've taken up coaching, Daniel. I've done it for about 10 years now. So I'm hoping when Ten Hag leaves, they might look at my CV.
I recently got into an under-7 school football team, so it's never too late, Zeeshan. You've always got a chance.
Well, you got into it or you coached it?
No, I mean, I'm playing with them, but I was that level, so they kind of let me in.
I'm going to move you away from football, fellas.
Next question for Babita and Phil, and Babita, I'll start with you. And it's similar for Phil as well. You've both obviously got a lot of experience. You've had a lot of experiences that have taken you to where you are. Lots of different factors have molded you into who you both are today. But even at your level, do you still have moments of doubt and insecurity? And if so, what do you do to combat these feelings? And we'll start with Babita.
Well, yes, of course, every day, whether it is coming on a webinar like this, or whether it's, a report I've got to deliver. Yes, there's always insecurity. And how do I combat it? Well, in my head, I try and break things down, right? So if it's like a big strategy I've got to deliver, I break it down and take it step by step. I also do a lot outside of work to help combat my stress at work. So I'm militant with working out every morning. That for me works in dealing with the day. I'm also quite transparent with the things that worry me at work with people at work. So I sort of take the view that this isn't me. I've got a team. I'm working with a team. I'm part of an organization that is there to help me. And if things go wrong, and things have gone wrong in the past, it's a cliche that you do learn more from your failings, and you actually do, because through experience, I'm not as scared about failing at it, because I know actually if I do fail at something, I'm going to learn more from that. So it's about, how do I sort of start my day that's going to help me? And for me, it's exercise. But it's, just being transparent that, yes, you are worried about things. what are you worried about, and the kind of help that you need. And if you're part of a supported organisation, which Zappi is, I know I'll get the help there, and it's about getting the right advice from the right people, and then making your decisions from that. But yeah, that's how I approach it. But yeah, I mean, insecurity is there all the time.
Thanks, Babita. And Phil, if we can pose the same question to you.
Yeah, again, I concur a lot with what Babita's just said. I think what I've noticed in my career is that you're never the smartest person in the room and or the most experienced person in the room, and you just got to deal with that, right? And that does lead to imposter syndrome at times, especially in the early days of new jobs. I've had loads of bloody jobs these days, so that first 6 months is always a bit of a challenge to overcome that. But I think what I've learned to combat that is to really lean into your experiences over time. Identify when you've had similar situations, figure out what you learned from that situation. Like Babita just said, like, did you fail? Did you win? Whatever, it doesn't matter. You've learned something from that experience and you can really lean into that. I think one of the other things I always think about, particularly on the client side, this works probably a bit more, but you're the expert in the room. Right? Everyone, all of your stakeholders are looking at you for the advice on research and insight work. So they're looking at you as the expert. So be that expert and have confidence in yourself and your skills and stuff that you've learned over time to portray an image and an experience that delivers. I always say when I was at Ipsos, we had people who were leaving to go client side for the first time. And I would always say that to them, the biggest part of advice is you are the expert in the room and people are looking at you for advice and the best way to do things. So yeah, absolutely use kind of experiences and expertise to lean into that. I think the other thing is just to communicate, like don't bottle it.
Yeah.
Don't bottle it up, communicate, get advice, speak to the right people, say, do you know what, I'm feeling a bit nervous about this presentation. And that instantly gets rid of some of the nerves and you'll get a bit of advice from a senior colleague or your mentor or your line manager, whoever it might be, or even, just someone in your team. And that just helps to alleviate some of the pressure. And look, at the end of the day, it's just work. We're all trying to do our work, but everyone's got other things going on in life that are much more important. I went through a bad spell of personal stuff, and that just really contextualized my work as well. And I think it's helped me in a way to overcome the perceived barriers, perceived issues and stresses at work, and go, well, do you know what, I got through much worse than this before, so I can do it again.
Wow, great stuff. Daniel, I'm very conscious of time. It's
so
getting away from us.
So Tom, if you just want to do question 8 as the final one with Wendy and Zeeshan, and then I'll wrap it up after that.
Okay, perfect. So Zeeshan, I'll come to you first, shall I? What, if any, barriers did you experience in trying to get a more senior research role, and how did you overcome those barriers?
So yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, I think I have been given opportunities, so I couldn't say that there were direct barriers. I think the thing that I've emphasized along the way is the kind of operational versus research roles and trying to make them more equivalent. So sometimes, a bit like what Philip said about imposter syndrome, being an operational person, you may not feel at a director level you're necessarily the equivalent of somebody in the researcher role who's that level, and it's kind of convincing yourself that you're adding the same value, the same insight, just for a different team or a different angle of the project. So that, I think, was quite a big barrier. And also, I think if you are from a minority, an ethnic minority, you feel more like you're representing your community sometimes if there's no one else who's there of that ilk. And so sometimes you feel that. Same with operations. It was like we are always representing someone or something. So you don't want to let people down. And some of these are perceived barriers. They probably aren't there. If you ask the other people in the room, they'll be like, no, I didn't think that at all. But it's only a personal thing that you sometimes think. And once you overcome that and you realize you're on an equal footing with everybody, it's all relative. So it doesn't become such an issue. And I think personally, one of the things was I'm quite a laid back character. And I think sometimes that presents its own barriers where you're kind of not forceful. And that's why some of the advice I give is, yeah, pursue it, because if you're laid back, those opportunities, you're not lucky, you might not get that opportunity. Whilst if I look back at things I could have done better, yeah, maybe pursue things a bit more, try and push for promotions or different opportunities. And I think my character's kind of laid back sometimes was to my detriment.
But that level of self-awareness and being able to work with that level of self-awareness must actually be beneficial for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Zeeshan. Wendy, would you like to answer the same question?
Yes, well, a little story. On the first day in my job as an NPD researcher, the head of engineering was to become my biggest internal stakeholder, said to me, "I never wanted a woman for this job in the first place, but you'll have to do." So
Wow.
I made it actually my mission to prove him wrong, project after project, and simply excelling in what I did. To put this in perspective, this is about 25 years ago, because I'm sure that a lot has changed right now. And a person like that wouldn't even get the chance anymore to do something similar. But I consider myself a little bit of a trailblazer that way. So hence, it was a challenge, and it actually made me perform better.
So it propelled you forward in many respects, rising to that challenge. Fantastic. Thank you, Wendy. Daniel.
Brilliant. Thanks, Wendy. I was just looking back at one of the questions, which was to do, when you have moments of doubt and insecurity, and what do you do to combat these feelings? So I've got a really good idea, get a boxing bag, which is what I tend to do, and just smash the hell out of it. It definitely relieves a lot of stress and pressure, and it helps you think a little bit better. But that's just from me. So what we're going to do now, time is almost at the end. We do have a couple more things we want to talk through. But at this point, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to give everyone one tip of advice of what, when they're trying to progress in the world of research. So we'll start with Zeeshan, please.
Yeah, I think I've said it before, but yeah, every opportunity is an opportunity. So I would not turn down anything, even if it does seem like a menial task or something. If you want to progress, put yourself out there, test yourself, make sure you're not leaving anything to luck or chance. Pursue those things. And I would also say, and Core are really good at this because I've been part of it, if you can get a mentor within your organization, great, or outside of your organization, it's really helpful because they can obviously give you their experience, their words of wisdom, and it really does benefit.
Thanks, Zeeshan. Babita?
I guess what I can say, what's worked for me most is build your network. So this is from your personal network, your industry network, go out there, talk to people, meet people, have coffee with people. You never know what you might find you've got in common. And also when you meet people you click with, just think how you can help one another. I mean, that's how I think about my network. What's that mutual value exchange, and how you can connect other people together, and through that you just get so much more, and it's really fun. And then the other piece is, yes, go out and get those opportunities, but just really simplify what's important to you, because otherwise it just gets quite overwhelming and your diary gets full and you don't know what to say no to. So I would say those are my two things.
Thanks, Babita. Phil?
I think you'll need some resilience at some point, for sure, to overcome issues that face you in your long career. Jesus, we're going to be working until we're probably 75, us lot. But I think the main tip is to take control, and it's been a common thread, I think, throughout all of this. And I was wrestling with this on the train on the way in today. It's like, is it self-awareness? Is it control? They're kind of intertwined, I think, but you have to take control of your own career, because as much as a line manager or an organization will say, we're here to support you, we want to see you grow, ultimately there's a limitation in terms of how far that will go. So you've got to take control. You've got to assess your progress. You've got to assess your own skills gaps. and identify the opportunities that are going to help you progress over time. If you want to become a team leader, for example, you've got to go out and find that experience if you're not getting it in your current role. And that's what I did. Like between Sky and now, I kind of took a role at Ipsos because, well, I didn't really want to go back agency side, but I knew it would give me that team leadership that would help me get to a senior client side position, which I was struggling to get without. So yeah, kind of be strategic and take control.
Brilliant. Thanks, Phil. When you said we have to work till 75, I was thinking, I was hoping I only have to work another 20 minutes, but no. 20,
I hope not 75, but that's the way it's going.
No, for sure. Wendy?
This is something that has served me well, as well in my personal as in my professional life. And it is to acknowledge that change is the only constant in life, and everything in life is cyclical. So don't get too comfortable in that easy chair once you think that you've made it, but also know that in situations where you're on the down and out, they will eventually change. That's my tip.
Thank you, Wendy. And then finally, Francesca.
Mine is watch your back. It sounds like a watch out, but the research industry is very incestuous, and that is not just in the UK, but I've worked across different countries, and we all know each other, and we all bump into each other at some point. I was doing some fieldwork in Austria, in Vienna, and I bumped into someone I had worked with 15 years ago. And yes, so there's this say in French where they say, this proverb in French where they say, as you go up your career ladder, be nice and professional to the people you meet, because as you come down or as you change ladders, you'll meet them along the way as well. So just it's a way of nurturing your network and really valuing the connections you have, because Babita mentioned something earlier, like you make sure that the connections that you make are mutually beneficial, and be nice. The research world is well, any job is hard. You've got to work hard and have your head on your shoulders, but be a nice person as well to the people you meet, because you'll meet them along the way, and you never know what opportunity lies there.
Brilliant. I like that one, Francesca. I'd always say, never burn your bridges, because you never know who you're going to meet where. So just before we wrap up, we've got a couple of slides we want to go through on the MRS and the auras. But firstly, before we get there, I just want to thank all our panelists for their time today and the preparation for today. I want to thank the auras, the team at the auras, and the team at Colour of Research for their support. In particular, Sia and Suzanne, who have helped with the marketing, and Rajdeep from Colour of Research, who's helped with the collaboration, and Ruth as well, from the auras. Just on the MRS, there is a number of ways in which you can get involved. We call it call to action, and it would be great for you and your organizations to get involved. We've got the MRS Representation and Research Group, which is a steering group driving representation across all aspects of the research industry. We've got MRS Pride, which is uniting the LGBTQIA+ professionals and allies across the sector. We've got MRS Unlimited, a driving force for disability, inclusive research and disabled research globally. Social inclusion, amplifying the voices of those disadvantaged on the basis of their social background. Women in research, advancing the contributions and voice of women in research, both for themselves and for the greater good of the industry. And Colour of Research, which is, as I said, it's like advocating for the inclusion of ethnic professionals in the research industry. There is a link on there. There have been some questions we haven't been able to get through, unfortunately, but it will be sent to the panelists, and in our summary, which will be released in the next few weeks, it will have everything required. And I'll hand it over to you, Tom, just to wrap up.
Okay, the final word from us at Aura. I should have said right from the start, I'm Tom Kerr of Aura. I spent a life on agency and then client side, and now I'm helping support Aura. And for those of you who are not familiar with Aura, it was founded in 1965, not by me, I hasten to add, the biggest network of client-side researchers. 183 of the country's best known organisations are members of Aura, and it is all about network and learning and support. And the things we've heard today, which are really important, building a network is paramount to success. Having a support infrastructure is vitally important, because we are not all rocks unto ourselves, and there will be bumps on the road along the way, and it's really important to have a support infrastructure. And also, even when questions come up in terms of new challenges that you don't know how to face, there is always a member or members amongst the Aura fraternity who will have the experience or the expertise to be able to lend a hand and give some advice. The last thing I'm going to mention of here is the Auras, the National Awards, National Research Awards, are coming up soon, so look out for those. We have an award ceremony and dinner at the Kia Oval Cricket Ground, another fabulous venue alongside Wembley, on the 25th of July, which is one of the best parties of the year, but a party with purpose. Good people are getting awards for doing fantastic research. If you're not a member of Aura, check us out. There's a link to the website there. Check it out and see what you think. So it's been a pleasure to be involved in today. Daniel, thank you for having us on board with you.
No worries, thanks Tom. It's been great. So again, thanks to everyone for joining, especially the panelists. And I'd say, be happy, be safe, and have a wonderful week ahead. Thanks everyone.
Thanks
Thank
everyone.
you.
Daniel.
Very much.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.